Hello, witchy people. Yes, it's me. I'm still here. And I know it's been quite a while, actually. I think January was the last time I uploaded any sort of video. And it's been very difficult in these times to try and feel positive about anything and to get online and record something when you can't, when your life isn't being normal, as you all probably know. So first things first, and I do seriously mean this, I hope you are all well. I hope you're coping, and I hope you're healthy, all of you. And for me, not so healthy, but I'm COVID free. So yeah, it's been very difficult, and I think regardless of what your spirituality or your religion is, the last few months have become a time when we have been more reflective, probably because we've had to be. We've had all this extra time. Many of us have. It sounds quite strange. Life hasn't changed that much for me, really. I was in self-isolation because of several health issues that I have. And my husband is a key worker, and the job that he does cannot be done from home, and it is an essential job. The hospital wouldn't function if my husband did not do his job. So he's still be going out to work. My daughter works from home, but other than that, it's been very almost normal. However, for all the normality, as the weeks have progressed on, it has become, I think, increasingly difficult to act normal. Because although life for me hasn't changed much, life around me has changed considerably, and that has made an impact on my life. As I say, I'm sure that it's the same for much and many of you, that your life has been so impacted. I mean, obviously, there will be no, I doubt there will be any Midsummer's Eve celebrations at Stonehenge this year. As of today is Saturday, as of Monday, in my country, in England, south of England, we are allowed to have up to 6 people gathered in a garden. So I'll be able to see my children and my grandchildren again, just not all at once. But that will be obviously at a distance in the garden. My younger grandchildren are obviously of a higher risk group, as am I, as is at least 2 of my children, well, all of my children actually, because they've all suffered asthma. Anyway, going off point, I wanted to sort of talk about how this affects us as, specifically as witches, as, you know, how we practice, how we honour. And like I said, I haven't been on YouTube hardly at all to even watch other people's videos. I've been through a stage where I've completely shut down. And to me, that is something that has been happening a lot. Not, I mean, as in not a lot to me, but a lot in general. For people who are very nature inspired and very have the need to access nature and the outside, I think this pandemic and the way many of us have been told we have to behave has been a real blow to the soul, really. So how do we change? How do we adapt? Well, obviously we have to. And it's changing the way we practice and wondering if the way we change is going to be the norm from now on. I'm hoping by Yule we will certainly be able to be outside, but then obviously nature is in its quiet period. It is sleeping and regrouping almost. So it won't be quite the same. I do have my garden. I am very lucky, and my garden is, the lilac has just finished. It's been beautiful. Eventually. But because there have been a lot more people at home, my neighbours are more noisy, so I don't feel so isolated, so alone. I don't feel so private in my garden, and that has had an impact even on the way I do things in the garden. I've had to think up new hobbies to do just to keep my sanity. You may notice that there I've resorted back to miniatures, just to try and get my head together. It's been the only way really I've kept my blood pressure down, which is a good thing. My blood pressure has dropped right down. Eventually, but finding hobbies that interact with our spirituality, and I know many people don't have hobbies that have anything to do with their spirituality or religion or their way of life, but I think a lot of people like to have that interaction, so that melding of their beliefs or their belief system and their hobbies, because it all becomes part of who you are. So they like them to interact, they like them to sort of overlap and meld. And for me that was always the garden, but as I say, the garden at the moment it's on its own. And it's doing really well on its own. I've taken care of it for a few years, and now it's going and doing its own thing. My husband built me the most beautiful birdhouse. This is a long convoluted story, but I'm going to tell it anyway. When my father was alive, my mum always wanted a birdhouse, you know, one of those ones on a pole that looks like a little house on a pole. And she never had one. And one day she'd gone out with a friend, and as she came in, and she went out to the back garden, and there's my dad with a big grin on his face. And he just built her the birdhouse that she'd always wanted. And it started falling apart after many, many years, and as I said, 6 years ago now, it must be 6 years ago, he passed away. And the bird table was passed on to me. My mum didn't want it in her garden anymore. I think it was too much of a sad reminder in some ways. But I loved it, and it's got to the point now where it's rotting away. So my husband said, I'll repair it. And by repairing it, I thought he meant repairing it, but he didn't. He built a new top for this birdhouse completely. And I said, you are not taking the top off that birdhouse that my father built and throwing it away and just replacing it with a new bit. That's not what I want. So I used the old birdhouse to grow my clematis around. I have a beautiful dark purple clematis, and I let that trail through the birdhouse, and it's coming along, it's doing quite well, and I'm hoping it's kind of, if the birdhouse rots away, then fair enough, it's going to rot away inside this clematis bush, and hopefully it'll be okay. But I'd rather that than it was replaced. Part of it was replaced. I want that to remain intact as it, you know, if it breaks and falls apart, then it breaks and falls apart as it is, not being replaced by new bits. So I didn't think anything of it, and then week before last, I hadn't been well. I'd been in bed for a few days, and I'd gotten up and I thought, where's my husband? Where is he? And I'd gone outside, and he had very proudly built me a birdhouse. So completely on its own, separate, and it's in the garden now. It's got these, it's weighted down by, I can't remember what it is, but it's some part of a motorbike, brake pads. I think they're the metal heavy brake pads. And it's weighted down with that, and they're perfect for sitting pots on. So I have this lovely birdhouse with little pots on growing lettuces at the moment. Actually, I think one of them's got lettuce in. And, you know, and I love that. I love that my life is mirroring in some ways my mum's. But yes, I've got my birdhouse too. Anyway, so with all of that, yes, there is still that connection I have with the garden, and yes, it still has my witchiness, if you like, associated with it. But that isn't the only thing that was going to keep me sane. And like I said, it's not going to be back to normal for a lot of us. And I think it's becoming more difficult because the weather is very, very warm. My cats are loving the lockdown. They've absolutely enjoyed the lockdown of being outside and not being bothered by anyone. But obviously, as you see nature coming alive and growing, you want to be out there with it. There have been a lot of people doing virtual tours where one person's gone out with a camera and done a virtual tour for you, and you can join in and such like, which has been nice, but it's not quite the same as being and doing yourself. So obviously part of this, it's not a new hobby. I've been making miniatures for more than 15 years, because it was before I moved here. And I do have a lot of them dotted around the house. And the one that you can see, I'm going to do it with this hand on, like this lower one here. This is a Miss Marple room from a hidden object game. This is a borrower's room up here. And I have made several people. But my dream was to make this little witch room with a little witch inside. And I bought a lantern to do it in, and so I'm trying to look where it's over there. Anyway, I bought this little lantern, and it's too little, so I'm having to rethink. And I will get to do it, I will. But as I said, it's been very hard to try, and I haven't stopped being a witch as such, because you can't stop being who you are. But I feel like I've been halted a lot. I've been held back in many ways because of this pandemic, the virus, the lockdown. And I know I've been lucky because like my family are all well. None of them, touch wood, there you go, there's a bit of wood, touch wood. None of them have caught anything, even though many of them have had to carry on working. They haven't been able to not work. So my brother hasn't been able to give up work. My husband hasn't been able to give up work. And we've been very lucky. It just feels like life is stilted. It's stilted, and everything's a bit fuzzy around the edges. You know, it's not quite real. And it's very hard to interact with a world that you know you're not supposed to be interacting with in many ways. So obviously I'm lucky in the way as well that I do have a lot of supplies. I'm a hoarder, okay? I have a lot of supplies. So I have plenty of candles, and I still have my imagination. And so life has been going on like that, and I am solitary, which makes it easier for me, obviously, because I am solitary anyway. By my beliefs, my hedge witchery, and as a normal person, I'm very, very solitary. And I do feel for people who I think need to be part of a group to help express themselves. And to have that wonderful feeling of being in a group of people who all feel and think in a very similar way and have very similar beliefs, and to be able to interact with those people, and to not be able to do that now must be absolutely awful. The internet for a lot of people, YouTube for a lot of people, has been essential. I said for me it became quite, it felt fake, to be honest. And I didn't like the fakery. I wanted something a bit more real. I wanted something tangible, tactile, that I could hold and touch and feel, and it wasn't possible. It's still not possible, but I feel a bit better about it now. I'm not so worn down by it. This was supposed to be a really quick video, by the way, and I'm rambling on. I just wanted to come on here. I wanted to know that people were okay. I wanted to know that life was going to return to normal. I think the only good thing to come out of this maybe is that we appreciate each other a lot more. I so desperately want to hug my children, hold my mum, you know, all these things, you know, kiss my grandchildren. I need these things in my life. And as from Monday, I may be able to, I know you're not supposed to, social distancing and everything, and it's very annoying, and some of you may know this, for us that have been social distancing and following the rules, whether we agree to them or not, we still follow them. And there are people who haven't been, and my neighbours are some of those people. They have not huge gatherings, but they have been having gatherings and parties. They've just had a barbecue now with loud music, and it's been upsetting. It's very frustrating, and it makes me very angry that I'm sticking to the rules and they won't. And I know there are people all over that aren't sticking to the rules, and I think that's, you know, we all need to make the sacrifice to make this work. And for those that aren't making the sacrifice and are flouting the rules and being selfish, you know, it's not fair. And I think maybe this would have all stopped a lot sooner if people had done as they were told. Maybe not. So within all of that, so I just think about my grandchildren, you know, my children, my mum. It is very upsetting. I do speak to my mum nearly every day, but it's hard. So yes, I have been burning candles. Yes, I have been making incense. My shop is closed. It will reopen. It's just a matter of when. The post is getting more back to normal, but I felt it was unfair on my husband having to go down the post office and sort out my parcels for my business when he had enough to do, because he was still working, and it's not something I can do myself. I haven't actually. I apparently the local shops have all changed. They've got arrows on the floor. You're only allowed to go in at a certain time, and even at the local doctor's surgery you have to queue up outside, 6 feet apart, 2 meters for those who don't use imperial measurements. But even now, you know, I haven't seen any of that. I haven't left my house since, oh good heavens, no, I can't remember the last time. It was probably the time then I videoed myself leaving the house. That was probably the last time I actually went out. So things have got to change for me. Things have certainly got to change for my lifestyle. I know that. And I think taking the witchiness out of my life around me, I haven't taken it out of me. I still think the same, I still feel the same. But not allowing my outside life to have that witchiness in it, not having my shop, not gathering. Didn't gather any berries, I haven't done any spring gathering. None of this, I think, has affected me quite badly. You know, my spirits have lowered, my weight has gone up. You know, it's that thing. I need my spirits to go up and my weight to come down. So I think now is the time to make a change. It's time to stop wallowing. It's time to really, for me, not for everyone else, because I'm sure other people aren't wallowing and feeling sorry for themselves, which basically this is what it is. I do feel a bit sorry for myself. I think it's time to make some changes and to start putting the witchiness from me back into the world, back into my life around me. Because it's all fine being a witch inside, but you have to be you have to put the witchiness outside as well. And I think that's what I'm going to have to start doing. So I'm going to have to start coming back on. I missed this. I have missed this. I've missed talking about things. I mean, I was actually I watched a television programme about otters, and I thought what magical creatures they were, and I started sort of like delving into otters and how they, you know, in the ancient accounts thought they were incredibly magical creatures. And I thought to myself, what a wonderful video. You know, I could do a great vlog about this, a video. And I thought, but you don't do that anymore. And it suddenly struck me, I do not do this anymore. I've stopped doing this. It's not part of my life anymore, and that's wrong. It needs to be part of my life, because it's the only way I can share. You know, like I said, I don't go out very often, if ever. I do have a couple of witchy friends, if you like, but on the whole, they aren't. And this is my way of sharing. It's my way of connecting. So I am very, very sorry that I've been away for so long. You may not have missed me at all. Today I got a message, which I will reply to, from Drew. Drew Echoes, and it made me cry. She only asked how I was. It made me cry. Because I think I felt that tug of that connection to the world that I have stepped away from. Now, I haven't stepped away from my witchiness because I can't, but I have stepped away from the world, and stepping away from the world has taken me away from other witchy people, if you like, people with similar ideals and beliefs. So I'm going to have to step right back in, I think. So thank you, Drew, for giving me a kick up the backside, whether you realised it or not. And we'll see how I go. So the next thing I may do is, after this long ramble, is start thinking about otters. So there you go. That's it from me for now. Thank you very much for watching. I will be back soon, I hope. I want this. I want to interact in some way, and like I said, I've missed you, and I'm concerned about people, all these people that I know, you know, put little comments on my videos and stuff. I'm wondering, how are you? Are you okay? Are you coping? Are you, you know, I hope you're all okay, and I hope that everyone's well and that their families are well. And I know that this is an awful situation that the whole world is in. The global situation is absolutely devastating and horrific, and you know, there's no point in wishing it's not happened, because it's happened, and it, like I said, it's awful. There are no words. I just hope, and you know, I just really hope and wish that you are all well. That's the main thing, and not just physically but mentally as well, because I know mentally is how a lot for us, which is, this is how it's affected us, is more mentally than physically. So I wish you all the very, very best. The very best blessings upon you all, and I will be back soon, hopefully. I will be back soon. I promise. So for now, thank you for watching, witchy people. Bye bye.